What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be working on making the 2JZ E36 legal for Formula Drift Pro-Am events. If you guys are new to the channel, behind me is my E36. It's a 93 325i, and I've swapped it with the 2JZ NAT. So it's running on a stock GTE ECU. I got it on the dyno, made about 460 at 18 pounds of boost. If you guys are curious about the whole engine setup and everything else on the car, make sure to follow the build series. There's a playlist for that, so you guys can go through and watch all of those videos. But like I said, today we're worried about getting the car legal for FD. So I'm gonna go through all the things that would take basically what is a grassroots level drift car with a roll cage and all that, and get it to the next level, which is being legal for FD Pro-Am. There's a lot of equipment that you need that you wouldn't necessarily be running for just grassroots events. So assuming you already have a FD spec roll cage and you have seats and harnesses and basically all the other normal safety mods that you would have on a drift car, you're looking at least $2,000 worth of safety equipment to get it to an FD Pro-Am level. If you don't have a halo seat, that's easily $900 by itself. You have to have a halo seat with the side supports for FD. And then you need all this other stuff. So not car related, but you need fire SFI rated gloves. You need an SFI rated head sock. You need SFI rated actual socks. And you need an SFI rated race suit. That stuff can all be had pretty cheap. There's a lot of companies out there that make very reasonably priced safety gear, so you can find this stuff on Amazon. You're only looking at a couple $100 there. On top of that, car-wise, you need a master disconnect switch for the battery to kill battery power. This is required on all FD cars. You need SFI rated padding around your roll cage, anywhere where your head can come into contact with it, and along the A-pillar. So I already have it up above my head, as you can see, but I don't have any along the A-pillar. I'm not 100% sure on what the requirements are for that, so I'm probably not even gonna install that, but I am gonna bring it to the track so that if the tech inspector says, hey, you need more padding here, I'll have padding with me and I can install it. All you have to do is stick it around the bar and throw some zip ties around it. Super easy to install. On top of that, you also need a drive shaft safety loop, so that if your drive shaft, if one of the U-joints were to fail, it keeps the drive shaft from being able to propel itself into the car and hurt you as the driver. You also need a SFI rated shift boot. Now my shifter is completely sealed with a sandwich plate the way it's bolted into the car. So I'm not 100% sure if I actually need this, but we're gonna go ahead and install it anyways. It's not very expensive and it's super easy to install. And then the biggest, most expensive item on the list is a fire suppression system. These are required even for FD Pro-Am events. So based on the rule book and the fact that you don't really wanna go super cheap on something like this, and there's not really a lot of cheap options out there, this is one of the more budget-friendly options, and it was around $700 if I remember right, so pretty big ticket item. And then you also have to have a Hans device attached to your helmet. So like I said, you add up all of these safety items. Halo seat is $900, fire suppression $700. You've got a couple hundred, I think it's close to $300 for the Hans, couple hundred in other safety gear, and then a few odds and ends that add up. You're looking at well over $2,000 just to get the car from grassroots to FD Pro-Am level. Now, some of this stuff is a one-time expense. You only have to buy it once, but most safety equipment has an expiration date, and FD requires that everything is within its manufactured safety date. So a lot of this stuff will have to be replaced in about 3 years, and then you're spending that cost again. The fire suppression, it just has to be sent in and checked once every few years. That only costs a small fee, so nothing crazy there. But you do have to put in a new halo seat every 5 years, I believe. Harnesses, those are $200. But I've been slowly working on acquiring all this stuff over time. So I did a new harness and the Halo seat last year, and then got everything else this year. That way I didn't have to buy everything all at once. It's also a good idea because then it rotates your expiration dates so that you're not replacing everything all at the same time. You can spread it out. So that really helps budget everything. But that being said, we're gonna go ahead and start installing all of this stuff. The drive shaft loop should be pretty easy. This is just a universal kit from Summit. We just have to find a place to bolt it. Fire suppression isn't too terrible. All of the lines and hoses are easily connected, so we just got to find a place to mount the bottle, and then we'll mount all of our nozzles and the lines. And then the master disconnect. This car already has a main battery connection in the front on the inside of the firewall. I've moved it to the inside, but the kill switch is required to be on the driver's side. So I'll just have to run a cable from over there to there and get it all wired up and test it. And then there's just a few other small things to do after that. So let's get started on it. All right, so I got the master disconnect switch installed in its place. It's not wired up yet. I'm not really crazy about the location and how it looks. Kind of looks cheesy. But it looks good with the hood closed. And you can reach it. The rulebook specifies that the master disconnect has to be on the driver's side cowl, and it has to be easily accessible with the hood both open and closed. Now on this car, we don't have a lot of real estate that will work for that because we have the wiper arms right inside of here, so you can't put it anywhere in there. I was originally going to put it more inside of here, but you have the wiper arm down there, so that wouldn't work. So I had to have it hanging off a little bit like that. It should work. Now I just need to figure out how I'm going to wire it up, what I need to get for terminals and wiring, and go from there. So I got it all wired up. Now it's time to test it. First things first, we got to make sure the car still starts. Everything seems to be good there. It's running, we've got power and everything. So now we're gonna flip the switch and see if it kills it. Perfect, that was actually a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be. So basically, ignore the mess in here. This is some temporary stuff and this is a temporary connection, but this red wire here is my main wire that goes to my fuse box. It used to connect right there into this positive junction block. So all I did was take it off the junction block. I ran a new wire from the block to the master switch, and then the other wire from the master switch to the fuse box wire. So essentially now the master switch just breaks this wire so that no power is going to the fuse box, which basically controls everything. Now technically there still is power going to the fuel pumps and a couple other things, but they're all triggered off of the ECU or off of a relay in the fuse box. So without power in the fuse box, none of it can run even if it has power going to it. The other major benefit to having a disconnect switch now is that when I park the car and store it for a while, I can flip that switch and hopefully not drain my battery. I have had issues with the battery draining over time. Hopefully this will solve that. Now there's one last step to complete the install. The FD rulebook requires that the switch is marked with the decal. My switch did not come with a decal, however, the fire suppression system did. Now, I'm not real crazy about this one. I might try to find something smaller or just a little bit of better design. That thing kind of stands out like a sore thumb, which is really what it's supposed to do, so that people know where the master switch is, but hopefully I can find something that looks a little bit better than that. Next, we're going to install the shift boot real quick. Now, the rule book is not very specific on how it needs to be attached. They just say that the shifter has to be covered with an approved boot. So I'm not really sure what I want to do here. I don't want it to just be sitting here like this, so I think maybe I'll just put a couple rivets in it in each corner just to hold it down. But otherwise, easy install. Next up is going to be the fire suppression system. So as you can see here, we have our bottle mounts. It comes with 2 pull handles, the line, 5 nozzles, a T, a 4-way, and a bulkhead fitting. And then it has some braided sleeve to go over all the line. So FD specifies that you have to have 1 nozzle in the engine bay, 1 in the driver's compartment, and 1 in the fuel cell area, or if you're using stock tank, the fuel tank access panel. So since I have 5 nozzles, the plan is to put 2 in the engine bay, 1 on each side. We'll have 1 in the driver's compartment, and then 2 in the rear seat where the fuel tank access panels are. 1 on each side. The different nozzles are just a different size stream. The yellow ones are meant more for the engine bay, and blue are for the driver's compartment. So FD requires that you have at least 1 pull handle on the driver's A-pillar. As long as you have 1 on the A-pillar, then you only need 1. So we're only going to be using the 1. We don't need the second one. So I'm going to take that and get it kind of temporarily mounted to see how far it'll reach, and then determine where I want to put the tank. All right, so if I put the pull handle right there, I can easily reach it from the driver's seat. And I think my best location for the tank is going to be right here behind the seat. So I'll just have to mark those holes and put some rib nuts in there and bolt those down. And then we'll get the tank strapped on and start routing the lines. Yeah, rib nuts are installed, so we'll go ahead and mount the brackets. Well, apparently you need to put the clamps on the brackets first. All right, now that the tank's mounted, we can start routing our lines out of this T right here. Next, we need to mount all of the nozzles. So I've got all these brackets right here. I could have easily made some brackets like this. They're a very simple design. All I'd have to do is cut them out of some thin sheet metal. However, cutting out brackets with an angle grinder is one of my least favorite things to do. And these were only $2 to $3 a piece, and I only needed 6, so I figured I might as well just buy them and not have to mess around with cutting them out and drilling all the holes, etc. So these are what the brackets look like with the nozzle installed. You can bolt the bracket here, and then you can bend it however you need to get the nozzle pointed how you want. Now the weird thing is they've got one big hole and 2 small holes. The small holes are almost too small for a bolt, but I don't know how I feel about only using one bolt because then it could spin. So I haven't quite decided yet how I'm going to mount them, but I'll figure it out and I'll let you guys know. All right, so we got all the nozzle lines routed. So now we get the fun job of taking them all back out, wrapping them in the fire protective sleeving, and then installing them for the last time. Now the routing, it's not super great. I'm not thrilled about it. In hindsight, if I were to do this again, I definitely would have bought a couple extra T fittings and things like that, because the kit only came with 1 T and 1 4-way, so it was kind of awkward the way I had to use those to make it work to get my lines everywhere that I needed. And the other thing is the kit only came with 20 feet of line. I don't know how they expect you to run 5 different lines to 5 different nozzles in a 14-foot long car with only 20 feet of line. So I did end up having to order an extra 10 feet, and that was enough, so we got it all done now. So we're gonna get this heat sleeve tubing on and finish this up. Okay, we got one line done. So I put the sleeve on, and then I put a little bit of heat shrink on each end to keep the sleeve in place and keep it from fraying. So now we'll stick this line back on the car and get all the other lines done. All right, fire suppression system is done. Just gotta throw a few zip ties on some of the lines to secure them in place. But we got all the sleeving on. Of course, I didn't think about the fact that since I bought more line, I would also need more sleeving. So I didn't have enough sleeving, but I just used some of the wire split sleeving that I have for the 2 rear lines in the interior. The ones in the interior don't really need heat proofing. They don't see a lot of heat, especially in the back seat. It's more the engine bay where that's a concern, but at least this sleeving on here will protect the lines from rubbing on anything and potentially getting damaged. So like I said, we'll just throw some zip ties on some of the lines, and then it's all good. All right, so one of the other requirements in the FD rulebook that I almost missed is that you have to have an oil catch can with a minimum capacity of 1 quart. Now, this is the catch can I used to have on the car. It's worked fine for me. I've never even come close to filling it, so I was never worried about having anything bigger. But FD does require a bigger one. This one's only about half a quart. So we got a new one that holds a quart. I had to whip up some new mounts for it and change the lines to AN. But now I can just slap it in and hook up the lines, and we should be good to go. All right, so we got the drive shaft safety loop installed. I had to install it a little different than it's supposed to be. These 2 pieces are actually overlapping instead of butting up against each other. And then I just chopped these brackets off because they were way too long, and then bolted them to the chassis here with riv nuts. Riv nuts probably aren't the best choice for this, but it's the best thing that would work for right now. I think it'll hold up just fine with 4 M6 bolts in there if the drive shaft does come off. So we'll call it good for now. It fits, it'll work, should pass tech, so we're good on that one. So that's pretty much it. That's all of the additional things that needed to be installed on the car for it to pass FD Pro-Am regulations. I've got a little bit more to do. I need to adjust my Hans device. I've got the Hans right here, and I mounted the studs onto my helmet, but I need to make this a little bit narrower for my neck. And then I need to redo the way I have the shoulder harnesses mounted, because currently this buckle on the strap is too high and hits here. So I need to have it lower so that it doesn't interfere with the Hans, but that'll be pretty easy. Just need to tighten this up a little bit, redo those, and we should be good there. There's probably a couple other minor things I'm forgetting, but I think that's pretty much it. I still have almost 2 months before the first FD Pro-Am round that I'll be doing, so plenty of time to do all those little things. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. This video is not meant to be a complete comprehensive guide. You guys should still read the rule book for FD. There's a lot of little things in there, and every little detail matters. So make sure you read through the rule book if you're trying to build an FD car. But I just wanted to inform everyone on what the basic requirements are and what it costs, so that you have an idea of how much money you need to spend on safety equipment. It's not cheap. There's a lot of stuff you need. So yeah, that's going to do it for this one. I've got a few things I need to get done on the car before the next regular event. I want to rebuild my turbo and do some spark plugs and other maintenance stuff like that. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that one. Until then, we'll see you later.